Well, the lights are on, quite dark outside, but the building is alive here on this Monday afternoon. Not often we have a Monday live racing card here at Gulfstream Park, but we do so on this May the 25th of 2020 for good reason. A great tradition, prideful and patriotic on this Memorial Day as we settle in with the rain falling outside and focus in on a 12-race Memorial Day program here. Jason Blewett, Acacia Courtney, busting out the blue. You too,
Yep.
Acacia, for sure. And we're ready to rumble here, although we're sloppy all day. 12 races on the program.
We are, and we appreciate you all tuning in and spending your Memorial Day with us today. And we want to say a big thank you to all of those, the reason for the day, who did give the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Yes, we do have a lot of fun celebrations and traditions on Memorial Day, but the reason is a somber one, and we're proud to pay tribute to that today. And again, thank you all for tuning in and spending it with us.
Yes, many brave men and women absolutely in our thoughts and prayers as we move forward onto the program this afternoon. And what a program it is. Again, we're coming in off a 11-race Sunday in a very comparable, similar type weather pattern and condition regarding the main track. I think the good news, though, moving forward off yesterday, Maine played very fair and even, and I think that's a worthwhile segue into the big carryover and guarantee we have in today's Jackpot Rainbow Six. Quite the number in a sequence that starts in the 7th.
It is 1.2 million guaranteed. Race number 7 starts a little bit later. We have 12 races today, which we haven't had in a couple of weeks. So we've got the 12-pack this afternoon. You've got plenty of time to adjust your handicapping, check out those scratches and surface changes for the Rainbow Six sequence. And we hope you'll dive in. It's just a 20-cent base wager and a lot of fun to get involved.
Absolutely. About 55 minutes, give or take, to that first race, the first of a dozen on the card. And we do kickstart the program, Acacia, at about 12:50 Eastern. We're on the main, of course, going a 1-mile, 3-and-up filly mare, $16,000 to $14,000 maiden claimer. Do you view this, starting your early pick 5, as a 2-horse race between the Norm Cassie drop down, the 8 Ocala, and the 7 Big Boss Lady, who's just got the best dirt races?
It certainly could be. I actually went 4 deep, potentially
Wow,
trying
okay.
to beat the favorites. I like Speed Play and Bella Gianna, who I liked last time on the swap and got beaten neck. I'm going to give her another try in here today. But I agree, but Big Boss Lady definitely has the best dirt form in general. But I'm hoping maybe we can start things off with a price, because I did have a single a little bit later. I'm 2 deep in the second, and I'm going to stand alone with Not So Subtle, who had a win on a wet track. It was a while ago, but she does actually have some good dirt races on the go back, and she's taking a drop for Armando de la Cerda. And I'm going to go 2 deep in that 4th race using the 2 Todd horses. We'll see 2 nicely bred, one by Candy Ride, one by Tap It in Assume and Prairie Wing. So curious to see what we get from those 2. And I'm 3 deep in the 5th to cash things out.
Absolutely. You've got the 8 Go Away, who's probably going to be favored, knocking heads against the 9 CC Rider. And I think that race essentially, at least the upper billing of it in the discussion, boils down to the dirt races and overall recent form of the 8 Go Away against a horse who might be a little classier than him in CC Rider, but a 5-year-old, speaking of Candy Ride, by that stallion for Mike Matz, who has not run since the end of September in 2019. Layoffs don't really account for much in this upcoming race, per se. I'm talking about lengthy layoffs as we focus in on probably the biggest key to the race, and that's the drop down, the number 8 Ocala, who I figured might go a slight favorite in this spot over the 7 Big Boss Lady. I just ultimately like her in theory running for 16,000 and thought she'd be a handful on the turf. I just don't know with the Orb More Than Ready influence in her pedigree how she's going to do at a short price on the main.
Well, we'll see. I mean, she's obviously beautifully bred. She's after Race Day, who was 2 for 3 on a wet track. So we'll see if that carries over to this one. Clearly, she's not at the level of Race Day. She obviously taking that big drop in class didn't potentially pan out as that 6-figure purchase price, but sometimes, as we often say, it's just a matter of where they might belong. So there is a little bit of that dirt pedigree as far as his influence in there. So we'll see what we get from her. But you know how I take these giant drop-down runners, Jason, trying to potentially see if they might be vulnerable, and a plain and simple a Speed Play and Bella Gianna, who almost got the job done with similar conditions last out.
Cut down in a tough neck loss at a good price most recently. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago on Sunday, May the 10th, or Saturday, May the 10th, by a horse in Generic Mark, who was a big even money favorite with Tyler Gaffleone for trainer Rusty Arnold. And then in the other camp, we have, much like Bella Gianna, who's in off that good recent out race on the dirt. The 7, Big Boss Lady, whose dirt races for previous trainer David Fox were okay, and you obviously have her pretty highly rated, as do I, as my top pick.
Yeah, her dirt races against Maiden 30 and at Churchill, second and a third place finish. Obviously, tougher competition than what she's going to find today. She's first off the claim for Dom Scatino today, and she does get a Misael Jaramillo up, so I feel like that might be a little bit of a vote of confidence as well.
And a 2-win Sunday here for Misael. Picked up his second win on yesterday's card. Almost said Saturday, but it was a Sunday. Kind of feels like a Sunday.
Like
Yeah, a little tough to keep track of the days, but we are, of course, putting the finishing touches on what's been our first 5-day racing week of the meet, and a 2-win Sunday here for EJ, who's back aboard for Schettino in the first race. Moving on to the second, we cut back to a 6-furlong, 3-lifetime, $10,000 3-and-up filly mare claimer in this one, and Edgar Zayas and Todd Pletcher will team up with a horse who's just going to be, I think, a clear favorite here as the new face with respectable out-of-town form in the 7, Ma Meatloaf, who just takes me back to Wedding Crashers, that great scene, you know, and gotta love the name here with the 7, Ma Meatloaf.
I thought exactly the same thing, so I'm glad we're on the same page here. I was laughing while I was handicapping, but look, I totally agree with you. She's going to be a short price, but she looks like she's in a good place in here, and she has some speed, which is definitely encouraging in this spot.
And Todd's had a good weekend thus far, racking up multiple wins. In fact, he is very much the point of conversation in the 4th race, which we'll get to in just a few seconds after discussing this off-the-turf 1-mile Monday 3rd race, a 2-lifetime $12,500 claimer in a race Acacia that houses your early pick 5 single and a very obvious starting point and deserving favorite in the 12, Not So Subtle, who, as I looked at this race after scratches, I said, boy, great spot for this gelding by MC.
Oh, absolutely. Third off the layoff for Armando. Takes a little bit of a drop in here today. And looking at his dirt races back before that layoff, broke his maiden on a sloppy track going 1 mile and a 16th and had a good second against Special Weight Company on the dirt here at Gulfstream. Just looks like a standout.
Absolutely. The 9 Bebo I thought might run okay, as well as the 4 Still Scheming. I guess in a way the 4 Still Scheming has the benefit of a respectable recent race on the dirt going 1 mile. I don't love that awesome party race as a whole that had that blanket finish, and it did come up relatively slow, depending upon what speed figures you're looking at, but still a horse worthy of a mention. I see you have the 6 Rare Hue in the mix this afternoon for trainer Kelsey Danner, who's starting to get pretty active here. She's got some runners coming up on both Thursday and Friday next week.
And Kelsey does a great job. I'm certainly a fan. And this is one coming in from Tampa who he's a touch inconsistent for sure, but in general, he's probably one of the tried and true dirt horses of the field. So that was one thing I thought was to his benefit.
And now we move on to the Todd squad in race number 4. And this was a race very much Todd against Kristoff, but the one sneer because of the wet track, I would imagine, scratched. Yeah, no, she just did not show up. That was not at all indicative of her ability, and we'll wait to potentially see her on a dry track again sometime soon. And you also had the kind of fuzzy John Kimmel layoff horse who had gotten bet last October in New York, the 3. We can't follow Yellow Brick Road because she's out of here. We'll look for her down the line. So that leaves you with the 4 Assumed for Todd, and most importantly, the 5 Prairie Wings for the same barn, and she's going to be a wickedly short price off a very good effort. Why don't we go back and take a look at her most recent start? Not so much the trainer change on the afternoon, moving from Kieran to Todd in this race we're looking at right above the quarter pole. I just think it was her improving second out, getting a longer race, and although Louis rode a perfect race up to this point, saving ground, I mean, clearly he's got horse things. I mean, it really turned into more or less an iron curtain at the top of the stretch where she's just got nowhere to go.
Yeah, she had absolutely no room. At this point, if you had her in this race, like I'm sure many did, you were just screaming for her to get some clear racetrack. And take nothing away from My Last First Kiss. She had been keeping good company, was knocking heads with some nice horses, and had the most experience. But I thought that Prairie Wings finished up really nicely, and going into that race, I really liked her stretching out as well. So I like to see her sticking at 1 mile. She should be in a good spot. Assume is a little bit tricky. I do think it's good that she had that 1 mile and a 16th race to serve as a good bottom underneath of her. But her 2 races were fine. We haven't really seen anything special from her yet.
Absolutely. And I think it's a simple case, just a 1-to-1 comparison. You're probably under the assumption, I think the majority of people are, that the 5 Prairie Wings is the most talented horse of the 2 Pletcher fillies. What potentially could get a little interesting here in this compact field on a wet track is assumed, does look just naturally nimbler and quicker than her out of the starting gate.
It's a great point. She's got a lot of speed, and if we have Prairie Wing stuck in a similar situation where she either can't make a run or just doesn't have room to, her stablemate going to have the benefit of that.
Definitely. Let's move on to the 5th. We'll finish off the early pick 5. Going a mile on the main, a 3-and-up 3 lifetime $40,000 claiming race. And as we had kind of touched upon, just recapping your early pick 5 and the cash out leg, I think this race essentially boils down to the favorite, the 8 Go Away, who's dirt form now with Eddie Plisa, by the way, but with previous trainer Eddie Keneally, pretty solid, catching a horse who might be a little more talented and a little quote-unquote classier in the 9cc rider, yet that gelding has not run since last autumn.
It is. It's a big layoff for CC Rider, and it is a drop in class as well. So I guess we're kind of wondering, what are we going to get from him? But the benefit of CC Rider is that he does have speed, and he's 2 for 5 on the main track, which is definitely a plus. While Go Away hasn't won on a main track, he's run very, very well in those off-the-turf races, which is the kind of condition he's going to be facing today.
Very dangerous horse and logical-looking, legit favorite for sure. As we turn the page again, and right on the cusp of that 7-figure Rainbow Six, we'll move on to Monday's 6th race and start a new batch of pick 3s in the meantime in this $50,000 to $40,000 maiden claiming race. What's so funny?
I'm laughing because we picked the same horse, and this is my long shot, thinking I was being cute today.
Yeah, this race, I'm curious. I forgot to text Pete. I'm curious to see what price the 2 Mokowitz is.
Yeah.
I don't think this colt, although not favored, I don't know if we're looking at 12 to 1 on this horse. I think he is, obviously a new face drop down and may catch a field for maiden 50 where he can make a big impact. Let's talk about him in a second. We've got a couple of replays, though. Let's talk about the shorter priced horses first, including the 7 Chill Haze and the 8 Fast Magic, who are coming out of the same race. I walked away from this race on paper when I first looked at it. Chill Haze, by the way, basically vying 3 wide in the Calabrese colors, and then Joe Orsino's Fast Magic is, 6th or so in the yellow cap down inside. On paper, I wanted to make the 8 Fast Magic as the horse I'd want out of this race, but I just don't know how much real running he did, whereas Chill Haze was up close to a pace that just melted down. I thought he ran really well, losing as the favorite, but a good effort in defeat for Safi.
Absolutely. He was a bit late switching leads, too, and to see how tenacious he was to hold on, I agree with you. The way the race played out, I thought Chill Haze maybe was a little bit sharper, whereas Fast Magic did have the benefit of a nice trip and a nice setup in there. That said, they both ran well for sure, and Fast Magic now first off the claim for Joe Orsino. But I wasn't entirely sure going into this race if I could trust any of the potential favorites.
Sure,
We've also got
you.
Sandy's Blaze, who ran very well. I mean, what do you do with this one who's dropping in as well?
He was really good visually, and just looking at what he encountered in his first start. This was quite a while ago. You've got to go back to mid-September. Basically, the last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks or so of our elongated summer meet in 2019. But watching him turn for home, I do remember watching this race live where I was standing in the grandstand here at Gulfstream and thinking, wow, this almost looks like the Kentucky Derby or something like that, where you've got horses basically 8 wide or so, and it was anybody's race across the track. He'll lose a tough one, the 4 Sandy's Blaze. Now, we have not seen him since, and he was just under 50 to 1, but here he comes, widest of all, in a race that perhaps didn't come up all that fast. But I think just looking at his effort in a vacuum, this was an okay career debut. How do you proceed, though, off the layoff with him in for the 50,000?
And he was just kind of galloping and swallowing up ground there late, not able to get by the winner that afternoon. And for what it's worth, as you said, the race didn't come up all that fast, but it did produce a couple of next out winners. We just haven't seen him in a while. We've been saying the barn's been in a good groove, so we'll see if Sandy's Blaze runs to those workouts in the morning. My thought process, and I would imagine you had a similar one, is you've got horses that I think all have their own fair share of questions. I think that Molkowitz, who I have actually liked his appearance in the afternoons for a couple of times, I've just been thinking he's just running against such tough horses. You look and you see Money Moves, Candy Machine, Basquiat, just some really tough competition that he's been facing. And I feel like this drop is just going to be a big deep breath for him and maybe a chance to show what he has.
Beaten by an 8-5 shot last time out at Tampa Bay Downs. And I think in addition to the drop and the fact that in terms of just his speed figures, he is a legit contender, and there's not all that much separation between a horse like Molkowitz and looking at the 7 Chill Hayes and or the 8 Fast Magic on the outside. I think when you then slot in the rider change here locally to Miguel Vasquez, he's just a very intriguing horse, and I just don't know how big of a price he's going to be in the 6th race this afternoon, as we basically covered our top 4 selections. He's not the only last out Tampa runner. Speaking of trainer Kelsey Danner, who's 1 for 3 in her career here at Gulfstream Park, winning a maiden race with Ike is Great here during the wintertime. She's got the 6, Captain Rhett Butler. Maybe not a bad hunch play here on Memorial Day.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. That's a good one. I would say a useful 4th in his debut for different connections. Now moves to Kelsey's barn and takes that drop in class.
All right, as we hopefully go up in class and definitely chase a lot of money, the Rainbow 6 opening leg up after this.
In the 2 path. Ground off first inside. Race. A quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 on top. Last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
And we are back, a little overcast outside, a light drizzle here and there on a somewhat breezy Monday Memorial Day at Gulfstream Park. Again, remembering all those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice, and we're glad you're with us, everybody. Moving from that outside clubhouse turn shot to our respective studios, it is Acacia, it is Jason, and we're delighted to have your company. As Acacia, we chase $1.2 million, the guarantee, in this all-main track, all sloppy Rainbow 6.
That's right. You've got plenty of time, as we said, to adjust your tickets. Hopefully you take a stab. Just a reminder, it's just a 20-cent base wager, so we hope you join in, and we appreciate you joining in with us on this Memorial Day. I did not find any singles in my Rainbow 6 sequence, Jason. We do start things off with a horse that will be a heavy favorite, and Miss Mishak on the drop in class. She's done some really nice running for Joe Orsino. Will we see her get back to that today? That's my biggest question. So I use a couple of others, but I will include her protectively. The 8th race, you know, that's when we have the off the turf and a main track only coming in. Chase Runner might be tough, but there could be a little bit of other speed in there to keep him company on the front end. I'm 2 deep in the 9th and in the 10th. Looking forward a little bit later on to race 11. That's definitely an interesting one. We'll see if Elusive Molly keeps that good form going. If I was going to single in this sequence, I actually toyed with singling Elusive Molly, but you do have 50 Shades of Green, who's faced some good horses, and I'll include the Inform Judy's Way, wrapping it up with 2 for 43.20.
And I see you used Glory Roll in the nightcap this afternoon for Joe Orsino. I think she's a potential fly in the ointment and upsetter in that area. I think her speed may go a long way in that 12th race finale, and not the only potentially very important horse Joe Orsino is running in this Rainbow 6. In fact, on your ticket, potential bookend winners, you use both Joe horses, Orsino runners, in the nightcap, and of course the 7 Miss Mishak, who's got to be the pivot off point in the narrative, talking about this upcoming Monday 7th race as she drops in and faces, of course, fillies and mares for the all-important $30,000 claim price. She's probably going to get claimed away, as she basically has her claiming tag. In fact, not basically, it is cut in half and then some. I felt as though it was worthy to go back and look at her back on my birthday, actually, on February 8th. I just noticed the date. Here's her last class, very solid race. This was absolutely a high watermark for her throughout her races, her series of races during the winter meet, chasing a stakes winner and a very good older filly for trainer Bill Mott in Blamed, who was a big favorite. But with that big white blaze, Miss Mashak was second. I think the question with her today is not her back class, it's not her ability. There was a part of me, and I get where you're going, not singling her and not picking her as what will be a pretty prohibitive and short price in the win pool. Do you think this is a little bit of a claimy with her in for the 30,000?
It looks a little bit like the for sale sign is out, and she's tricky because it seemed like she was doing so well in that state bred or restricted company throughout the summer. She was in good form. She was running well on the turf and on the dirt. And through this winter, she has faced some really tough company. I mean, you look at the likes of Ladies Island in the Grade 3 Sugar Swirl. We just showed that one with Blame, Jakarta, who went on to be a stakes winner. She was running against some really nice horses. So that said, and she was disappointing last time out as the favorite. The drop today, maybe just not seeing some of those sharpest races. I think it could be a case of two things. She could win and get claimed and get back to the winner's circle today, or maybe some of her better races we have seen already. That said, I absolutely respect her, and she is the starting point in here. I'm just hoping that Still Alive, who on the dirt has been facing some good company as well. Her last dirt race was against Frank's Roquette, and we know how that turned out. So I'm hoping that this drop helps her as well.
And two in the race for Guadalupe. Lupe Preciado, who also has my potential runner-up, the H.E.'s Primo, who's down in class and seems to have drawn a pretty good post. If there was one horse that perhaps moved up in the Mother Nature department, maybe it's the one Hydal faced down inside, right?
Yeah, that could be interesting for sure. I thought the same. Has some tactical speed and did win on a sealed sloppy track against a nice field back in August.
Well, we'll speed right into the opening leg of this Monday, very rare Monday, late pick 5, going a mile again in leg number 1. It's about Chase Runner and a likely fast pace, but just his ascension, and then you slot in Safi off the claim with a horse who has just really come into his own over the last few months on the dirt. And although I noted, Acacia, I'm with you 100%, that there seems to be a plethora of speed types in that 8th race. I'm just hoping the ability, the recent form, plus with Safi off the claim, that's good enough to get the white-hot Chase Runner home as my single. He'll go favorite in that opening leg. I used 3 in race number 9. That is a tricky race. I used every bit of Unpublished on the Rail, the 3 September 10, and the 5 Traveling Gambler, who's on a wet track again for Eddie Plesa Jr. I've got 2 in the 10th race, landing on the 8 horse At the Pearly Gates, who might be the best dirt horse. I just don't know about A, a wet track for him, and B, staying this distance on the dirt over a wet track, and the 14 Geonosis, who's just the truest dirt horse in the race off a win last time out. Didn't single Elusive Molly. In fact, taking a page from Todd Pletcher in the 4th Acacia, we've got trainer Mike Mager, who really holds, I think, a really strong hand in today's featured 11th race, not only having Miss Molly on the rail, but also the 4 Spartanka, who comes out of a loss here in the GP Oaks on the Florida Derby undercard.
And definitely, if you want to go for toughest company face last out, I would say she gets the nod for that.
Definitely. In talking about Chase Runner, though, what you see is what you get. This does seem like a horse, albeit against slightly easier horses. He's just really come on and turned into like this true blue, just tough as nails horse out there, going basically a 1-turn mile here at Gulfstream.
He's been very consistent, and I like that Edgar Zaya stays aboard, too, off the claim, as he seems to handle this horse very, very well and good at rationing his speed, which is one of his best weapons, too, from a mile to 7 furlongs. And as you said, it's been against a little bit softer. But I do think with off the claim for Safi and Frank Calabrese, they're not afraid to drop horses off the claim or put them where they can potentially be. We know Frank Calabrese likes to win races, so this one must be doing very well, is my guess.
You would think so. The 4, the old class horse, the gray. And we had a good day for the grays here yesterday with Blue Bluff and Indamage running 1-2 in a pretty exciting 10th race feature. He's the old 8-year-old gray. He's certainly in with a big chance, and a horse that, although better on the turf, has been able to run on the dirt in the past. And Zippy for Guadalupe Preciado. He may be the one. I'll tell you, if Chase Runner has to go too fast, along with the likes of My Point Exactly and maybe a little driven by Thunder. Zippy might be the one that capitalizes and cuts down everybody.
That was my thought exactly. And I remember a time where Zippy seemed to just kind of love a wet track, and he seems to have gotten back to a decent form lately. So if he's going to be able to sit a trip and pick up the pieces late, that really could benefit him in here.
Tricky ninth race. Scheduled dirt affair coming up. This one was drawn on the main, and I struggled with it a few days ago, and that initial synopsis hasn't altered or changed all that much as we come on to this two-lifetime $25,000 claimer. So you and I, cold 5-3 exact, that we both respect the speed and I'd say the dip down and realistic dip down in class for the 3 September 10, but we both picked the 5 Traveling Gambler, whose effort two-back was pretty good for Eddie P.
The blinkers go on today, and I'm just thinking that you can't really put too much stock into that race. He will have to deal with a wet track today, but off of a big effort after about a 4-month layoff, maybe you just are a little bit more forgiving off of that race last time out where he was wide. Beyond Gone was the one to beat in there. We're going to see him back in for 25,000, third off the bench, blinkers go on, and he has the ability to show some natural speed. I would imagine maybe with Christian Torres up and blinkers on, he might be a little bit more forwardly placed and not left with so much to do as he was last time.
And I feel like that whole Beyond Gone crew, those 3-year-old claimers, and it's basically, those races have been basically one facsimile after another. Same field, same field every 3 weeks. I think those horses as a whole might be okay and stack up really nice with the quality and just ability level that he's facing this afternoon. 5-3 for Acacia and I in that 9th race. We're on to the 10th. We'll go a mile here, again, off the turf in this 3-lifetime $20,000 claiming race. And I think the truest dirt horse in the race, who's outside in the 14 Geonosis, who just a few days ago, in fact, 8 days ago on last Saturday's card, May 17th, would have been Preakness Day. I was surprised, not that he won, but that he won and nobody jumped in for the 6250 and claimed him.
It is kind of amazing, and I think there was a big question going into that too. Could he handle the mile off the layoff? And he showed that that was no problem. So distance isn't a question. He is stepping up a bit in class today, but off of that last effort, I mean, he's obviously a very big player. I felt the number 3 Shanghai Moon was one that was kind of elevated with the surface switch in here. He was going to be a big price on the turf, but all in all, his dirt races for a little bit lower too, but his dirt races as a whole have been very solid, and I think that this is actually a good spot for him off of that near defeat last time out.
88 buyer, 2-back for the 8 at the Pearly Gates, who basically won from here to Gulfstream Park West. His last start, not much to write home about, but I mean, apples and bowling balls, as Phil Leotardo would say on The Sopranos here, with the quality that he faced back on May the 10th. It is funny, as good as he's been, if even a little inconsistent on the dirt, he does seem like a horse, and I've got him second because I respect his speed and that effort 2-back, but man, it does seem like a wet track. He might be very fickle when it rains.
That was my concern with him. He's 0 for 4 when it is a wet track, and with these conditions last time out, he was a non-effort, and even you look back to December, same kind of case when it was a sloppy track. So that was my concern. But his speed is obviously a good weapon from him. I did think that the number 6, Super Courage, who actually a while ago, though, but has a decent dirt resume and is third off the claim for Bobby DeBona, just an in-form horse.
And Bobby DeBona certainly got the one Elusive Molly in our featured Memorial Day 11th race here. Elusive Molly on track, a very big win for her off the claim for Bobby D, and she was promptly sold after that race to Michael Dubb and a few others, and now is going first-time Mike Maker, one of 2 in this upcoming Monday 11th race for the Maker Barn, and she really is obviously the story with just how well, against easier fields, but just how dominant she was in her last 2 dirt races, winning by a combined 20-plus lengths. This is her just a few days ago. In fact, you've got to backtrack a few weeks ago, back on the morning of May the 3rd. She is breezing alongside In Company. I do miss seeing the sun here at Gulfstream Park, that's for sure, looking at this breeze. But she is working out with a 3-year-old maiden in Act Like Artie, kind of a workmanlike breeze for this filly by Elusive Quality. And I do like her even with that inside post and a slightly better field. I do like her to come back and win her 3rd straight just because she's been so good over her last couple.
She has been, and I do think it is interesting. As you said, she was sold after that big effort, and she actually broke her maiden with Mike Maker and was claimed away from him. And so it's kind of a little bit of a homecoming here, which I think is pretty interesting for sure. But as you said, Mike has too. I backed off of Spartanka, but the more I look at her 2 races in Maiden Company were very good. And I was probably a bit too hard on her because it did take her such a long time to break her maiden. But the 2 with the Maker Barn have been good.
Definitely. And John Service, again, a nice win with Blue Buff.
Yeah.
And yesterday's feature is back with the 5 50 Shades of Green. Outside of the Maker duo and of the layoff horses, she's very interesting here. Her dirt races as a 2-year-old, as a filly by Bernardini in 2019, they were okay.
Yeah, they were. And I think she looks a little bit similar to, well, Brush My Tooth, who we had the other day, who ran very, very well for John as well. So this is kind of a similar looking type of horse who obviously was facing tougher back at the start of 2020.
We'll close things down. 5-day week comes to an end with the 5 furlong, 12-5, 3-and-up filly and mare off the turf claimer. I fooled around trying to pull the trigger on the One Glory Roll as a top pick. I see you did too because you used her in your Rainbow Six. I respect her. I think she is perhaps the best looking speed horse in the race, but towards the outside, we've got some horses that just struck my fancy a little more, and that includes the 15 Free to Fly, who I admit 5 on the dirt might be a little short for her. It is absolutely uncharted territory. But looking at her dirt races and the company kept basically throughout the entire winter meet here at Gulfstream, to me, this is just a needed but also a very massive dip down the class scale. She's just faced so much better over the last 6 months or so.
She really has on both turf and dirt, which is pretty encouraging coming into a spot like this. So we'll see how she does handle the distance. I landed on Worth Avenue, who I admit I didn't love picking her in this spot because she won and it was life and death for her to win last time, and now she's off the claim for New Connections. But I just thought as a whole she was a tried and true dirt horse in this field.
She is a tough mare, right?
Yeah, she's very tough as they make them, and it was good to see her get back to the winner's circle
Yeah,
last
I've always
time.
admired, much like the New York breds, most of these Florida breds. I mean, they are the antithesis of hothouse flowers. They are just very tough horses. She's out for that 6th lifetime win. You know who else bred in Florida who's pretty tough in his own right? You know who I'm alluding to?
Are you talking about Pete?
Yep, and he's standing by with those scratches and changes.